Good morning. This is Vinnie Mirchandani, Deal Architect. How are you? Real pleasure to have Rod Johnson today, President of the Americas for Infor. Infor has had a lot of exciting changes, and I'm not just talking about the recent crisis. Rod, congratulations on your promotion. Tell us a little bit about yourself. I know you've had a long career, Oracle and so on. And also tell us about Infor and all the changes before we get into this current crisis.
Yeah, well, Vinny, it's always good to see you. I think I probably met you for the first time back in the late 90s when I was on the analyst side at AMR Research. And I think you were over at Gartner at the time, and certainly I think at that point looked up to you in terms of the wisdom you've had, and you haven't slowed down. So,
well, you don't need to be nice. I think you admired the fact that I had a little more hair back then.
So, yeah, I mean, a lot of exciting things. I joined Infor a little bit over 2 years ago. I spent 8 years at AMR and now part of Gartner Group, 11 years at Oracle, and I'm very excited to be part of Infor. Lots happening, obviously, in the space overall, but Infor as a company is evolving a ton, especially with the recent acquisition by Coke. We think it's going to open up a lot of new opportunities for us and our customers.
So, Rod, Infor is fairly broad geographically, and certainly the Koch brothers are all over the place. Have you done okay? Have your employees done okay through this crisis?
I mean, the first good news is all of our employees are safe. We certainly had a handful of folks impacted globally, but everyone's recovered. So across 17,000 people globally, and obviously have big teams in APAC and India and all over Europe and in North America. I think we've done exceptionally well, and especially moving everyone pretty quickly to working out of their homes. So unlike some industries, we're very blessed to be able to adjust pretty quickly.
So that's great to hear. Rod, I'm on my business school dean's advisory board, and I interviewed him yesterday. And I said, Dean, you taught me many things, but you didn't teach me how to survive a crisis this deep and this wide. And he had a great answer. I mean, he's a very good leader. Rod, where do you find the inspiration? Where do the Infor executives find the inspiration in this time frame? I mean, there's no script for this, is there?
No, I mean, completely none of us have lived anything remotely similar to this. The speed with which this I guess rolled into every industry and every household is incredible. I mean, we have a big customer base in the healthcare market. So working hand in hand with a lot of our healthcare customers. So about 70% of the hospitals in North America, as an example, are Infor customers. And just to see the leadership, in the nursing ranks and the doctor ranks and the administration of these places to turn on a dime to scale to respond to this is pretty remarkable. So a lot of inspiration from them. And the person that I have to say I've really grown, I've always admired, and I admire way more now is Bill Gates. All the work he's done over years to work on these problems. I mean, obviously, we're in a much better place with some of the work that he's done as a leader.
Well, thanks. Well, talking about healthcare, we've seen heroics, unbelievable, right? But not just in healthcare. In manufacturing, we're seeing auto companies jump in to make ventilators. Logistics, we're seeing all kinds of last mile, people running through hoops. Banks are doing PPP, emergency loans by the hundreds of thousands. And so it's been like 10 years of progress in a couple of months.
Yeah.
Tell us about some acrobatics you've seen, firsthand almost.
Yeah, no, it is remarkable. There's a few examples I think are unique. When we've had customers in the apparel industry making masks and Crocs donating footwear, was a few that I thought were maybe a little bit more unique. So Ecolab, which was a customer uses a lot of our transportation management capability, has turned on a dime, and they had a lot of customers in the cruise ship space where they had to find a way to bring soaps and sanitizers into those markets. So they deployed helicopters for their last mile of logistics to serve those customer bases. we're really, really proud of one of our customers, Quidel. They're in the manufacture of diagnostic equipment, longtime LN customer on an ERP side. They're massively scaling production because they're one of the primary manufacturers of COVID-19 test kits, and gotten huge new contracts to scale production. So we're working hand in hand with them to make sure the systems are going to help them scale production. And one that's another one that I really like is every hospital now with protective equipment was really struggling to figure out how much do they have, where can they get more. So for a number of customers, including the Children's Medical Center in Dallas, we built critical supply dashboards with them so they could see precisely, how many masks they have, protective equipment, all the equipment they needed to surge in order to begin to get their frontline workers ready to support the demand. So it's really cool. I mean, it's really cool. I mean, obviously there's tragedy, but with tragedy, there's sort of great innovation, great to partner with some of these companies.
Yeah, I would think you have an excellent enterprise asset management tool. You would think with it's amazing we haven't been able to figure out how many ventilators we have across the country. So sounds like that would be another very good opportunity for you. What about, tell us a little bit more about healthcare. I mean, clearly you're seeing such a big customer base. Tell us about some of the heroics you're seeing there.
Yeah, there's a few areas. I mean, obviously these big centers that were highly impacted. One of our customers locally here in New York is Montefiore Medical Center, which is a big institution in the Bronx, with tens of thousands of serving a massive community, a community that was massively impacted. So yeah, them sort of changing the whole way that they administer the patient experience. Incredible. A big part of this is not just the frontline work, but we've been working hand in hand with a lot of customers on the ability to get reimbursed. Because if you think about what happened to the healthcare customers, it was sort of a double whammy. All elective procedures, which is really where they make the majority of their money, were basically stopped to shift all of their capacity to be able to support the surge of patients suffering from some COVID-related illness. So there's a double whammy, and then so also working with them on the whole reimbursement process. How do we more effectively track all of these cases, making sure they're able to tap into the federal funds to keep them liquid so they can continue to pay their people and ultimately serve the community. So a lot of our healthcare customers were working on both sides, the supply chain side to make sure they got the right goods in hand, and on the the financial side to make sure they're getting cash in through the different reimbursement schemes associated with some of the funds available.
Are these starting to show up as feature requests, or is it still too early?
Well, I think certainly there's some new innovation, but a lot of it was just training our customers how to use functionality that was already in the system. So, for example, we had a whole extensive webinar series for all of our healthcare customers to show how they turn on certain project capabilities to track certain types of expense claims. So it's really helping them implement configurations that are capabilities that are already in the system that just weren't as important until this moment. Are building out these new dashboards. The data existed there, but there was no way for them to surface it in a way that they could make better decisions. So we found that was the quickest time to value. Obviously, us building a new feature that we need to release and test is a longer cycle. But we already see, just slipping gears into another industry, in the hospitality sector, where we have a very big presence in reservation systems, as an example. We're seeing enormous demand for completely touchless reservation process. That people will come back to hotels, but they don't really want to walk up to the front desk and have an intimate conversation. They want to be able to check in on their phone and walk to their room and really execute touchless. And while that exists in spots, but really touchless for everything within a hotel experience. So we're getting a lot of feature requests there that we're building out for that community.
It's kind of interesting. Some of the sectors that look dead at surface, in my interviews, I'm finding nuances that I would never have known. So I interviewed somebody from Cognizant's hospitality group, and he was like, he was telling me on how restaurants are bouncing back. And he said hotels are seeing a lot of local demand, not cross-state or international demand, but a lot more local demand. So it's good to see the economy wake up in different ways.
Yeah, sure.
How about, I know retail's been a big area for you also. Is that kind of dead, or what are you seeing there?
Yeah, I mean, obviously if you look at the three industries most impacted, you probably have healthcare, hospitality, retail and apparel. Just massive change in demand. But obviously there's pockets of areas where you do see, lots of need for net new innovation. For example, in the grocery segment, and partnering with companies like Alberts and Safeway, that's, having to surge their ability to fulfill. So a lot of focus on, warehouse automation, distribution center improvements. We've seen that. We also seen a lot of other demand retailers that with the surge of .com demand, which is obvious, is that they're turning a lot of their stores into sort of virtual warehouses. So we're working to the beauty of our warehouse management is it is available in multi-tenant cloud. So we've been able to sort of roll that out really quickly to help them sort of configure and roll out virtual warehouses in different environments to take advantage of the surge in demand, whether that's pick up at the front door or actually fulfilling right out of the stores. We've seen that evolve over time.
Rod, you mentioned cloud. A number of CIOs I've talked to said their cloud applications made work from home a lot easier.
Yeah.
And they said the cloud has scaled better, praising cloud for a number of different reasons, right? Do you think it's going to make your customer base finally move to the cloud a lot quicker, or still too early to tell?
Oh, I wouldn't say we're at the point of seeing a surge of new projects. I think everyone is still grappling with adjusting their business, but our expectation for sure is that the customers that have made the transition, so sort of saying, thank goodness we did that. I can't imagine having to deal with sending people into the data centers to do stuff. The fact that this is virtualized and automated and we didn't have to worry about it. We could work on, getting new laptops out to our people and the VPN working, and we didn't have to worry about, sort of the enterprise systems being available. So I think in a way it sort of went from everyone said, well, being in cloud is sort of optimal. It's an optimal strategy and we should get there. I think everyone now knows, whether it's digitization of stuff or it's cloud, it's fundamental. It's fundamental to, I think, how companies will operate. And our expectation is there'll be certainly a significant surge of new demand, or existing customers that are thinking about it, they begin to accelerate their plans.
It's funny, Anil Bushri, the CEO of Workday, said, Vinnie, can you imagine if I was still at PeopleSoft? We would have had to ship servers to our customers to handle the kind of scale we have in the cloud.
Yeah, I mean, just think about that Quidel example I gave, the ability for us to scale server capacity, or certain industries, we win there proactively in the cloud, and knowing that we have a lot of food manufacturers, we're seeing a big surge in demand. We're able to proactively, automate, not having people, but just add more server or memory capacity to those systems to make sure they had the horsepower. It's a huge advantage that people don't even really think about, is the scaling up factor you can deliver really on demand.
Talk about food a little bit more. That clearly is another of your important verticals. Has it been inconsistent? Some seeing huge demand, others not so much. Because the food.
I think the biggest issue that we've seen is, I think really across the board, there's been, outside of the ones that really specialize in supplying food service businesses or restaurants, they obviously have been, massively impacted. And we've seen them really adjust their manufacturing, because, hey, if their business was 50-50 selling to food service and 50% selling through sort of grocery chain, the repackaging, they don't have the same packaging. So they had to dramatically scale certain lines to, produce stuff more fit for purpose for for the grocery chains. We've seen that. We've seen we work with a lot of our customers on a whole new workforce management strategy. It's one of the other software capability we have, because there's been wild fluctuations in availability of workforce. People calling out sick, having to close factories for deep cleaning, or having to close distribution centers for deep cleaning, shifting capacity from one site to the next. That's incredibly challenging dynamic situation for clients, whether it's in the meat processing segment or a lot of these things where you're working in close confines. There's been a huge challenges, let's say, of keeping production working smoothly, even though there is surging demand.
Yeah, I interviewed the CIO at Mart Pizza, and that's when it hit me. We talk about supply chains and we talk about China and Asia. But actually, the food supply chain has actually been just as much impacted.
Is there any business that hasn't been, completely, and maybe in some cases permanently reshaped by this crisis?
So let's talk about the economy in general. Do you see a V rebound, a sharp rebound? Do you see a gradual U rebound? Do you see a W, kind of, depending on the flare-ups, depending on regional opening schedules, or do you see an L? It's going to be dead for a while.
I'm an optimist.
That's surprising. I wouldn't have pegged you. I'm just kidding.
I'm an optimist. I think, hey, we have a long road. I think anyone that looks at this seriously, and I'm not an expert in this. Last time I studied economics was when I graduated college in the 90s. So, I think we're going to go through a pattern of instability, but I think the arrow is going to be pointing up rather than down. But not in a straight line. So maybe it's a couple of W's, but the W is getting much smaller and angled a little bit to the on the upward trend. I think we're going to continually have to adjust, and I think there's going to be some setbacks. But what gives me confidence is I just think all of the invention and ingenuity and adjustments in business models that this is sort of the human spirit, right? Is we don't accept the outcome, we look to how to figure out how do we change the outcome, and you see that everywhere.
That you're the first person to say multiple W's, but that would be a good way to look at it, and that'll eventually look like a U. Hopefully, a sharper U. What other advice? You've been in the software industry a long time, both as an analyst and as an executive. What advice would you give CIOs, fellow software executives?
Well, the biggest adjustment, for us is the new normal is going to be more of this kind of thing that we're doing. We're going to be delivering big, complex programs with a much larger percent of the people working virtually and remotely, both on the customer side and our side. And we're going to have to be able to demonstrate the power of our software without a bunch of people sitting in front of a room, waving their hands. So, and we're all going to have to become real experts. And I think we have to learn a bunch from the TV industry. We got to become quite comfortable at producing experiences that are virtual, and not this heavy reliance on sending armies of people on the road all the time. So that's a big shift, and I think it's obviously we're going to get back on the road, but it's somewhat permanent in terms of how we're going to operate sales, delivery, and other aspects of the business.
It's funny. I wrote a blog yesterday called "The Democratization of the TV Studio."
Yeah.
Okay. And I had backgrounds from many of the interviews I've already done. I should have waited till today to include your Infor corporate headquarters background. That's pretty creative.
Yeah, we have to do more. We're definitely spending time. The team's looking at, hey, how does Saturday Night Live work? How do they create such a rich experience? Or the news outlets are or the Daily Show that, these are things that we're going to have to figure out, is that, we got to create as rich and engaging an experience without, that, 100% of the time we're sat in a conference room or, customer's work setting.
So I'll tell you, we'll finish up with a funny story. So the only executive who's been in an office in this series was an executive in Hong Kong.
Okay.
So 10 minutes into the interview, and his motion detector detects no activity. So it goes dark, and he gets up and he starts waving his hand. Right? The light comes back on. And I said, you've forgotten how to work in an office. You've been working at home so much. Rod, thank you so much. Any final thoughts?
No, great. Always great to spend time with you, and appreciate what you do and getting this type of information out there. So always a pleasure.
Well, we'll have to meet up sometime in person in that wonderful headquarters of yours.
Yeah, anytime. I'm ready to get back there, not just virtually.
Stay safe. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Vinnie.